Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. Today, we have a very special guest, someone that when I saw their story was incredibly inspiring to me. And I'm sure everybody that's listening will also learn. He's also a fellow EOer. He's been through many experiences that I think is going to be of value. So, Joel, thank you for being podcast.
Thanks, Ahmad. Good to be here with you.
I love it. Thank you. Maybe we can start introducing yourself, who you are. I love on your Instagram you say from you started with humble beginnings, became a multimillionaire, then became various businesses, and you also do jujitsu. So you're very impressive. So maybe, but I'd love to hear from your side.
Yeah, we can go backwards. I got into jujitsu 4 years ago. I'm currently 48. So I started at the age of 44, kind of a late time to start martial arts for the first time in your life, but it's an absolute passion of mine. It's my way of getting top fitness and great life lessons. I've got a lot of guys who've been through my men's program who I've convinced them to start jujitsu. And some of these are most of them are entrepreneurs, and they've seen the connections that I've made to that and business and life. So yeah, it's a big part of it for me. Married, live in South Florida in a city called Weston, and have 4 kids, all the way from 19 down to 10 years old. Been married over 22 years to my best friend, Jessica. Yeah, I was originally from Cuba. I came to this country on a boat when I was a kid. Grew up very poor, just outside of Oakland, California. And every day I knew a few things. I knew I was poor. I knew I did not want to stay poor. I also knew I was different. I flunked a grade in school because I did not speak English, and I was always an outsider. So those are kind of the how I started out. And then from there I had to just make a lot of decisions to either fit in or form my own path. Give you a hint, it was mostly forming my own path. I did not fit into society's norms, which is why entrepreneurship was really, for me, was the only way to go.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on a little bit about that because I think all entrepreneurs feel a little bit like black sheep in life. But how do you feel that formed your experiences?
Man, was I a black sheep in every sense of the word. You look at a picture of my family when I was little, and you see my dad, my wife pointed this out for the first time. I never realized it. You see my brother, my dad, and my mom, all three of them, no smile. I mean, it looked like a picture from 1800. No smile, all had glasses, and I was the only one, no glasses, and a huge smile on my face. I was always very different from my family. My parents and my older brother loved to read and sit around and do nothing. And I could not read a book. I needed to be running after a ball or playing tag or just moving and dealing with my ADHD, which always pointed me in. Back then, they didn't say ADHD, they said hyperactive. So I was told I was crazy, I was spastic, I couldn't control myself. Boy, was I a black sheep at home, at school, because I didn't do very well early on in school. I couldn't sit there. I'd see the other boys and girls, mostly girls, being able to sit there so calmly with their hands folded and nicely. And my legs kept twitching and I kept looking around and I couldn't listen. And then all the time this happened. Multiple times a week, the entire class would stand up and I'd go, what's happening? What are we doing? And everybody would say, didn't you hear the teacher? There's either a fire drill or we're going to go out and do this thing or whatever. I never knew what was going on. So black sheep in jobs, I was a black sheep. I was always a good worker because that I did do well, but I hated every second of it. I had a job in LA when I was 22, and it was taking a piece of paper it was a insurance company, medical insurance, and the salespeople would go out to a company and get forms filled out of new members switching over to that insurance. And my job, imagine this, 22-year-old kid with ADHD. My job was to sit in a cubicle and not speak to anybody for 8 hours while I took those pieces of paper and I typed them into the system. That was my job for 8 hours a day. And I think of it, and I don't know how. Well, the only reason I didn't jump out of that 17th floor is because you couldn't open the windows. But I thought my life was over. It was the most depressing job I've ever had in my life. So yeah, I was a black sheep in every sense of the word.
And then how did you get started into entrepreneurship? What was the catalyst? What was your first business?
Yeah, fourth grade kids after school. This is back in the 80s, and school would finish and kids would cross the street two lanes in each direction, just cross the street and go to the liquor store and buy snacks and buy sodas. And then next to that, there was a donut shop, and there was an arcade next inside a gym, gymnasium that had a few arcade machines. And kids would go and do all these things, and I never could because I didn't have the money. We were broke. We just came to the country, and there was enough money to have food and to have old hand-me-down clothes and a roof over our head. There was not money for toys much. So I always had that hunger of like, man, if I could just go and buy donuts and be like the cool kids, and if I could play a little bit of arcades, and if I could go get a soda myself and all these things, that would be really, really nice. And, as much as I would ask my parents for it, they would say, nope, we don't have that kind of money. So in fourth grade, I got a tremendous opportunity to change my life. On a Sunday, we went to my grandmother's house about 20 minutes away, and an aunt took us to the corner store, and all our cousins. So we walked over to the corner store, and everybody got candy and this and that. And I got some trading cards, and I took them to school the next day on Monday, and I was showing them off in the playground, and everybody was going nuts over them, and they wanted to buy them, and they started offering me money. And I said, aha. And I real quick did the math on what they cost each of them. And I put a much higher price, and I started selling these cards, and it went really well. And about a month into it, I had $50 saved up, and I bought myself a transformer, this huge robot, the biggest one they make. It's called Omega Supreme. And I bought that for myself. And that really changed my life because I learned so many lessons on that playground about money, about how to sell, about supply and demand. And it set me on a trajectory. So that really was my first business, and I had all the troubles that you can imagine. The school cracked down and said you weren't allowed to sell those. So I had to kind of do it underground. And I got caught again. So I had to switch to something else. And I was always from then looking for my next thing. And I always developed little things along the way.
Amazing, amazing story. And there's a commonality, right? A hook, and then you were out of need, out of necessity, and then when you figured it out, you thought, okay, this is what I'm gonna do in my life. But I think also in that time, entrepreneurship wasn't entrepreneurship. It wasn't a word. What happened after? What happened after school? What was your first business like, and how did you come up to that?
Yeah. So in high school, I sold chocolates. And then once I started driving, and chocolates were good, they were $30 a day net profit. And that allowed me to pay for all my stuff, get a car, used cheap car, pay the car insurance, which back then, I think about it, this is mid 90s. I was paying $200 a month in car insurance. And that makes me think, I wonder if my dad was actually charging me the right rate or boosting it up, because that was a lot back then for a kid, when the jobs were 4.25 an hour. Always had a job after school. But I started going to garage sales and looking for things that I could resell. One time I found a guy selling colognes. These are tester bottles. And he had them. I think I paid $5 for them, but I bought a lot of them, and I would sell them for like $20, $25, but I would take them to the flea market. Another time I went to a garage sale, I found a guy selling jockey underwear samples, brand new in the package. These are $12 to $15 items. I knew nothing about underwear, but I remember looking at the packaging and seeing the pricing on there and the barcode and saying, wow, these are expensive. How much are you asking? And we wanted $3 a piece. I said, what is all this? How do you get them all? And he said, I'm a sales rep for Jockey. I'm independent. I pay for these. I do trade shows. And then I'm left with hundreds or thousands sometimes. And I just do these garage sales. And we get to talking and become building a relationship with this older guy. I was 19 or 20, and he was a 40-something-year-old man. And he said, I really like what you're doing. You're going to buy these to take it to the flea market. I got a son your age. He's inside, and he's playing video games. And I've told him he can have all of these for free. Just stand out here or go to the flea market. He doesn't want to do it. So I really like your hustle. So we got to know each other and like each other. And I said, look, if you give them to me for $1 each instead of 3, I'll take them all right now. And he said, yes. I gave him a couple $100 in my wallet. I went to the ATM. I got a little more. I ended up spending $500, took him to the flea market. That turned into $3,000. At the time, mid 90s, I was earning $8 an hour in my full-time job. And this was way better. Every 6 months, this guy called me and he'd say, Joel, I've got another 1,000 pieces, 1,500 too. The more I bought from him, the more he started requesting of Jockey that they let him buy the whole as much as possible. So he'd buy the max they'd let him. Years later, he told me he'd pay 25 cents for each. He'd do these big trade shows, get all these millions of dollars of orders from the big stores. And then he had all these leftovers. So he liked it because he'd ordered 2,500 pieces. and he'd sell them all to me for $1. So he'd make 75% profit, pretty good. And that got me thinking, he sold to me every 6 months for 11 years. But that got me thinking, there's got to be more underwear opportunities like this, because I stopped doing flea markets quickly and I put them on eBay. And now I wasn't getting $6 a piece, still buying them for $1. Now I was getting $10 to $12 a piece, but every time they'd run out. So I kept searching on the internet and I found a brand in Mexico. And I saw that they were on eBay back then. That was the big deal. And they were expensive. Some seller was starting them at $9.99 for these swimsuits, and they'd end at like 30, 40, $50. And bought from the only distributor they had in the US, was very unprofessional, ripped me off, charged me more than what he sent. And when I complained, he said, well, too bad. What are you going to do about it? I did a chargeback on my credit card. And then I was so frustrated. I go, this would have been awesome. I was buying them for 12, selling them for 30, 40, 50 on eBay. So then I checked the tag of the one I had, a few that I had left, and it was in Mexico. I'd never had made an international phone call. I didn't know how to do that. It ended up costing me $55 to do an operator assisted international phone call. And I spoke to the owner. They got me with the owner pretty quick. And he said, you've answered my prayers. Do you speak English? I go, yeah. He goes, yep, you've answered my prayers. And he said, I've always dreamed that a businessman who speaks Spanish and English from the US would call me so I could get a real distributor, because the one I have there is horrible. I go, oh, you're telling me? He ripped me off. He goes, yep, that's just like him. He's an idiot. And so we built a relationship. I started buying from him. He was putting them on eBay. Now he gave me a $4 price, and I was selling these for 30, 40, 50, these swimsuits. And we built it up. And then he gave me a great idea. He said, why don't you go to Vegas and do a trade show? And, really nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I put out a lot of money, and I did my first trade show, and I started selling wholesale to stores, and I started building up a portfolio of stores. And one thing after another led to growing that to more than what I would have ever expected.
Incredible, incredible story. I want to ask you about the how do you transmit this to your kids now? Because you mentioned that this first person with jockey underwear was like, he wanted to give these jockeys for free to his kid, but he wouldn't take it, and you paid $1 for it. What do you do with your kids now? How do you incentivize that? What's your advice?
Yeah, I don't know a lot of things, and I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm really good at developing strong, independent children. I've given that talk to EO groups, and I've given it to webinars with my wife. Number one step is, it's a 10-step program that I have for that. Number one step is united front. It requires both parents to be in alignment, because if one's saying, no, give them everything for free, and the other one's saying, no, make them work for it, especially if they argue in front of the kids, you've destroyed the entire thing, because kids are going to go automatically to the easier. It's a human nature. I've made some things clear to them. This is my money. I've earned all of this. I started in poverty. You're living in the safest city in Florida. Down the streets, the New York Yankees shortstop, a couple blocks away. You're living in this absolute bubble of awesomeness, no crime, amazing people all around. And guess what? None of it's yours. You're here because of me and your mom. So you can have all of this. I can show you the way. And so this was conversations I was having with my kids in kindergarten. And my son, I remember at dinner, we have 4 kids. At that time, we only had 2. We were at dinner, and my 6-year-old kindergartner, 5 or 6, he said, Dad, I want to make money like you did when you were a kid. Because I told him how it was awesome. I was buying my own toys. And, first of all, I don't give a lot of stuff to my kids as far as material things. I say, if you want those things, you got to buy them on your own. I'll show you how to do it. And now it's your choice. What's magical about that is that once they earn the money, it costs them, it hurt them, it struggle, if they work hard, they're less likely to go blow it. So that kid who was 6 years old ended up with $30,000 in the bank before he graduated high school. So at that dinner table, he said, I want to do what you did. And I go, perfect. All you got to do is sell chocolates. And I said, remember a few months ago, your school did a chocolate contest? And you won, you beat the whole school. Obviously, he had me coaching him in his ear, saying, hey, let's go door to door. Hey, let's go to a restaurant, sit down and eat, but have the chocolate box next to you and you'll see how people buy them. So he beat the whole school, and he won a gift card. And I said, imagine that $50 gift card. You could make way more, and it's cash, and you put it in the bank or you do whatever you want with it. And so I remember his eyes lighting up and say, I want to do it. So within 24 hours, we were at a wholesale place, grocery store, buying chocolates wholesale. And yeah, he started making hundreds of dollars a month. Along the way, I always reminded, this is you, you're doing it. You're awesome. I'm just here telling you what to do, but you're doing the work. So build up that confidence. And at the same time saying to them, I'm not giving you anything. You know how to make money. So I always warned them at 18 years old, you're a man, my oldest son, you will be paying rent. It's $200 a month. I never adjusted for inflation, unfortunately, because I always said 200. I kept it at that. So 13 months ago, we started collecting on that oldest student, the oldest son. And I know it worked because one day he was having a little tiny dumb argument with his little sister. And he said, "Excuse me, I am a man. I'm 18 years old. I pay rent here. You can't talk to me that way." And it was awesome because not he doesn't see having to pay for things as a punishment. He sees it as I've earned it. I've become a man. So he bought his own car cash. I went to the dealership because he asked me, he was already 18, but he said, "I just need you to come here and just give it a look for me so that I know I'm making a good decision." And I went in, we did a test drive. He drove. I just sat in the passenger seat and he goes, "What do you think?" I go, "Yeah, it's a good car, man. Buy it." And then I said, "Well," and then I don't know, I walked away around the dealership and I came back to the office and I said, "You'll have to set up car insurance for this." And he says, "Oh, no, I already called. I already have it set up." So, man, he's 18. He
Incredible.
just turned it, and he only spent half his money of the 30,000. He still had the other half in cash in the bank. So that's one example. We've got four. It trickles down like that. The second one is 17, already in college. He skipped a grade. He's really smart, and he bought his own car cash, pays his own insurance, doesn't pay rent because the rule is 18. I didn't take into account he'd skip a grade. So he's already in college, paying for his own college, doing all his own stuff. The oldest one's in the army, second one's in college, and then we have two younger ones. And all of them have thousands of dollars in savings, and we've never given them a dollar, and we don't buy them much stuff. Holidays, birthday, we'll get them a little something. But other than that, they build it all on their own, and it's really working.
I absolutely love this story. I think one of the biggest takeaways I'm taking, or at least I do this podcast because selfishly I learn so much from people, and I consider myself a sponge. And when I have kids, I'll definitely implement this. I tend to joke around that when my nephew, he's very, very cute, and when he asks me for something, I'm gonna be like, start a business instead of giving, because I think giving is beautiful, but teaching is even more profound.
Yeah.
Let's go into like jujitsu. What got you into jujitsu at that age? What was, jujitsu? I've done jujitsu, and my experience has been extremely humbling. From going, I was the entrepreneur that had a big business and had employees, and then suddenly I had someone's crotch on my face and I couldn't get out, and they were half my size. So I know that's incredibly humbling. You think, okay, I actually need to learn to be humble, but also learn to defend myself, learn to stand up for myself. But what got you into jujitsu? What can you share
Yeah.
from that?
Before I tell you what got me into it or who got me into it, I'll tell you, 44-year-old man. I'd run marathons and ultra marathon. I've lifted weights all my life. I thought, man, I'm healthy. I'm good. I'm going to be pretty good. I even wrestled a little bit in fourth grade for a little while and eighth grade for a little while. And man, I showed up and a 14-year-old girl choked me out, endangered me to break my arm until I tapped out. I mean, just one after another took my back, got me in an ankle lock. And I said, this is like a superpower. And I watched UFC 1. I saw Renzo Gracie, the Brazilian, win that, and UFC 2 and others. I'm sorry, not Renzo. What's his name? The first Gracie that won the first one. Renzo's where I trained, Renzo Gracie. But there's a bunch of Gracies. Anyway, I saw how jujitsu was so powerful. But when I saw that, I was in my early or late teens, early 20s. I couldn't afford to go train jujitsu. I had to work all day, so I couldn't do it. So I knew it was powerful, but man, was it a wake up when teenage girls were smashing me that weighed half my weight and were not as strong as me, and they were destroying me. So I said, I got to stay in this. But the person who got me in it, his name is Jocko Willink. He's a former Navy SEAL commander. He's written some great books like Discipline Equals Freedom and all on leadership, and a really amazing person. So in my underwear company and swimwear company and athletic apparel, I bought 14 companies, smaller businesses, and I rolled them up into one and did that for 20 years. Something interesting happened. There was a brand that had disappeared off the market, and I always wondered what happened to that brand. I don't see it anywhere. I used to buy wholesale from them and sell it on my little e-commerce site that I had in the beginning. And I contacted the owner. I asked a few people for his number. I got a hold of him, Michael, in Los Angeles. And I said, Michael, where's your brand? I don't see it anywhere. And he says, oh, I retired. And what'd you do with the brand? He goes, I just closed it. I said, why didn't you sell it? He goes, nobody's going to want to buy that. And I said, do you still own the trademark? Can I look it up on USPT.gov? And he said, yeah, it's still there. still active. And I said, I'll give you $3,000 today, and I'll give you 10% of sales over the first year if you sell it to me. He said, heck yeah, it was worth zero to me. You're going to give me 3,000 plus 10%. Let's do it. So within I don't know, a week, we closed on that, transferred the trademark to me. And I had just read Extreme Ownership from Jocko Willink. And the beautiful thing is that this brand is called Jocko, and the website is jocko.com. So I immediately said, okay, I'm paying him 3,000 plus a few bucks in the beginning, and I get this website. Let me contact Jocko Willink's people. I don't know them, but let me contact. I sent an email. I got completely ignored. And then I waited a month or two or three, and I wrote them again, and they responded. Jamie Cochran, the COO of Echelon Front, Jocko's company, responded and said, would you, yeah, so what do you have in mind? What do you think it's worth? By the way, we don't really need it. Great negotiation. She says, we have Jocko Fuel, Jocko Podcast, Jocko Books. We have all the Jocko. We don't really need yours. Yeah, right. You don't. I could give you the perfect website to link to all of that. And so I said, all right, here's my conditions. So mind you, business making me money already. I was good. I'd even started a little coaching practice. I was making me six figures. So I was fine with money. And so I said, I want to work out with Jocko in person. I'll get myself down to San Diego. And I want to, a couple things. Oh, I'd like him to coach me. I'd like his access to him to make phone calls whenever I want to. And then I'd like $1 for the website. And she didn't respond. Jocko responded and said, dude, you're amazing. Come down to San Diego. Here's some dates. Spend the day with me, bring your wife. And I did, spent the day with him, was in his podcast studio for hours. Me, every book he's ever written, I had to get a suitcase to bring home all the books he gave me. And then gave me some tickets to his muster event for free. But the workout, he said, instead of working out, let's do jiu-jitsu. And so a month before, September 2020, I said, I better learn how to do this jiu-jitsu thing. So I started and said, I'm going to sign up for 1 month. And we're now 38 months into it. And I go about 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And so, yeah, that's how it started, from an experienced black belt, and from an acquisition that I had made led to that.
Goodness, I totally pulled a cord that I didn't expect this wonderful story to come out. But you did mention after, what lessons do entrepreneurs, why do you tell entrepreneurs go do jiu-jitsu? What did you learn from it?
Yeah, I really say to do hard things. So many mornings I wake up and it's still dark out, and it's temperature is very comfortable in my house, and I walk outside dreading it from the moment I wake up till I get in my cold plunge. And it could be in the 30s, 40s at the hottest, and the hottest summer here in Miami might be 50. It's still cold, right? The body's at 98, and we're getting in 30, 40, 50 water. And I don't know, I'm not a scientist. I don't know much about a lot of things, but I could tell you that doing hard things changes you. I can speak as a man. Those hard things probably have been part of the reason my testosterone, from when I started measuring it to where I am today, has almost doubled naturally. I don't take any testosterone shots or anything, but we're putting ourselves in a primal setting. Some guy 1,000 years ago probably had to go fight an animal or had to go fight a person to survive. And I think we get so complacent and so comfortable in our lives nowadays with our air conditioning and our heated seats and our cars and our remote controls and our comfortable chairs, that we forget what it's like to be a human. And to be a human, a real human from the past, not what's happened over the last 100 years, it was tough. It was really, really tough. And look, I know nothing about these things, but I bet you there was probably less anxiety and depression in the past than there is today. Just like in the third world, there's probably less, because you're scraping by to get by. And I'm not saying to go give up everything you own and go suffer, but when we can, in a safe environment, create temporary suffering to then, we fight our way out of it. And jiu-jitsu has a lot of, and I'm no expert in jiu-jitsu. I've 4 years, I'm a blue belt. I'm almost halfway through that journey. It'll probably take me 12 years to get to a black belt. But I see that you have to fight your way out of bad situations. So this guy's got your back and he's about to choke you out. And you could say the word tap or tap his arm and he'll stop. But your brain doesn't realize that in the moment. In the moment, you're about to lose your life. And that stress is so powerful. But then you learn some tricks. You go to enough classes, you show up, and you work on facing your fears, in this case, your opponent, and turning around and facing him. those victories, I think, add up. And again, they come, in my opinion, from doing some difficult things that you don't want to do. So sometimes maybe I'm in my sauna and okay, I've been in here for 20 minutes. I'm sweating. Like, let me see if I can crank out 5 more minutes. I'm not going to die. I got plenty of water and electrolytes, and I'm going to go shower after, and I'm going to feel amazing. But those extra 5 minutes really pushed me so that now, if I'm tired at night, my wife needs my support, I can listen to her. Like if my kids need some more time before they go to bed, I could talk to them and be there with them. I could do anything. I'm in fear of losing money in an investment. I'll get through it because we put ourselves through some difficult things. I think it prepares us for other difficult things.
Perfect. Yeah. And this is like what you're prepared to be in a difficult situation. It's sort of it creeps up to you. You're not prepared, but if you have that mental tools, or even sometimes you have to work 24 hours, you're ready to do it.
Yeah. I just wish I would have found jujitsu earlier. I wish I would have found doing really tough things earlier. Now, a poor upbringing is a tough thing. It's a blessing. I'm so lucky that I was poor growing up. I'm blessed by that. The worst thing that could have happened if I would have had parents that were wealthy and gave me things, that would have ruined me. I know it. I've seen it. I've seen cases of people that I've known who aren't happy. They're depressed. They've got a lot of, and life is tough for them. My two oldest kids are now in life. They're 19 and 17, and they tell me life is amazingly easy. One's telling me being in the Army is so easy. I'm training to be a diesel mechanic there, saving up for his first house. He says, all is amazing. This is it. This is life. My 17-year-old is killing it in college, paying his own way, has a full-time job, says classes are so easy. Everybody's so lazy. They all complain. We've trained them by putting an artificial, difficult situation in front of them, life, that where now they get out and the next 100 years are going to be so easy for them.
Amazing. Such valuable. Going back to entrepreneurship, what do you think people misunderstand about entrepreneurs?
Well, when I see not people who have not had to risk their capital, um, talk like about politics and about how things should, I wish everybody had to be an entrepreneur. When people say the rich don't pay their fair share, maybe not the multi-billionaires, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the little guy. Yeah, you're making $1 million on paper and you're paying 39.6% tax. And you don't even have the cash because you've reinvested some of it and it's not on cash-based accounting. You can't even write it off yet until you sell it. Like that's what would happen to me. Yeah, I was making over $1 million a year and I was sometimes cash strapped because I had this growing business and I had to keep investing in inventory and everything was going to taxes. And people, oh yeah, you made it. You have it so easy. Dude, I had it very difficult, and not just me. Most entrepreneurs have it very difficult. We're risking everything every single day. Every time that we get up, we're like, oh man, I hope I don't lose my main client. I hope my vendor doesn't go around my back and start selling directly. I hope my employees show up. I mean, there's so much risk and so much stress that people don't see that. And there's this, sometimes we have ebbs and flows in society. We might be getting to one of those now where they want to bash that entrepreneur and, oh, you're evil and go do it yourself. Come over here. Come compete with me. And I know some people who've tried it. They felt like, oh, I could do that. And then they've crashed and they've lost everything. I hate it when entrepreneurs lose their money. But man, if they're those types that think it's so easy and they see the reality of how difficult this is, I like that part of it. I want them to see the reality. I don't want anybody to lose money, but I appreciate that, man, okay, you saw how it is. You got knocked down. You lost everything. Try again. I've lost everything multiple times. I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to lose everything anymore. I can't keep risking like I used to. So I have to diversify and tighten down and not do those crazy things anymore. But yeah, it's a tough ride.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest correlation I see with when I interview entrepreneurs is that everybody thinks entrepreneurship is easy once you make it. Everybody knows it's hard to start a business. I think society knows, like, oh, you want to start a restaurant, a a software company, a tech company. It's tough at the beginning, but it's tough always. I think overwhelmingly the message is never easy. Even if you're $1 million ahead on paper, maybe the problem's even bigger.
Yeah. And there's never a finish line. You never say, yep, I made it, I'm done. It's like, okay, now I got this whole new set of challenges. I'm getting to this level where I've got to now develop new software for my business. So that means I got to hire this team of engineers. And oh my God, I don't even know how to do that. I got to that. That actually happened to me. There was multiple times where I'm in over my head. And then you start getting imposter syndrome and thinking, who am I to be doing all this? What the heck's going on here? It's a mind game.
For sure, for sure. Maybe changing a little bit of the subject, but I help entrepreneurs invest. And once they have exits, help them with that liquidity. Changing the hat from being an entrepreneur to being an investor is a massive transition of identity. But what I see very common with entrepreneurs is that they are less risk prone or risk takers as investors than they are as entrepreneurs themselves. How do you see that? How do you see investing? What's your take?
Yeah. So I get hit up from people for investments often. And I say no to probably 99%. I might say I'll look at it and I will, but I don't know that industry that they want me to invest in at all. And I can understand that person on the outside. I could talk to them and see what they want me to see, but I can't open up their chest and look inside their heart and see if they have what it takes to fight through those sleepless nights, stress, no paycheck for a few months because you got to pay your employees and your vendors and all that. I don't know if they have that. And for me, until I find someone that I know has what I had as far as that toughness when it got rough, it's not easy to pull the trigger. I can't write you $100,000 check when you don't have a track record. And I don't know. I don't know enough about your industry. So that limits the amount of things I could do. So I either write a small check for them and just see, or I just have to pass. This isn't for me. I don't know enough about it. I don't have as good a relationship as I would want to have with you as to be able to invest. So that might be part of it. I know myself. I could risk and gamble on myself because I know who I'm going to be in the darkest hour, but I don't know what that guy or girl is going to do. So that might be part of it.
Sure. Do you think it's also a a question of lack of education, or perhaps the entrepreneur is very set with, I know how this works and it took me 20 years of continuous learning and I still feel that I need to learn, that going a different route is just like a too heavy lift?
Yeah, it's and also it's so hard to earn money that it's um it's crazy to just put so much of it out there on the things that again you don't know about. I like Warren Buffett. He doesn't invest in things he doesn't understand. I'm the same way in that sense, and I don't understand 99% of things that are out there. I mean, honestly, I don't know about I don't know machine building. I don't know about technology. There's so many things that I don't know about that. So I'm going to stay away from those and I'll learn over time, but I'm not ready to go cut a check simply because someone's telling me how well they're going to do. The other thing I have trouble with is all these pitches that I see, they've got these projections and they're always positive and they're not all right. So I don't know how none of them have ever projected down. They're all predicting absolute success, yet 90% of them, 95% of them don't have any success. So it's all become a little bit of BS to me. Like, okay, you're going to do that. Show me how you're going to do that. And every step of the way is so optimistic. I really wasn't that much of an optimist. I always kept saying, okay, let me figure out why this won't work and how someone will knock me out of business. And so that's why I've always gambled more on myself than anyone else.
Sure, sure. I see that. In our company, we always invest with people we know, because I think the sponsor or whoever we're investing with is the 90% of the returns. And then I have a podcast and I wrote an article, and that's why I started really doing this, because that all underwriting is wrong. Like all projection is wrong. Everything is wrong. So how do you do it if everything is wrong?
Yeah.
Understanding how to, like, because Excel, you can model to anything. You can be optimistic or pessimistic in any way, and really having discipline to how to do this is really, really critical. And it goes back to really trust, right? It's really, okay, I believe there's this opportunity, but getting there is, it takes a talented person. It takes someone that's been there, has done that, and can show results. Then once and again.
And who's mentally tough. That's something that because it's going to get ugly. There's going to be bad days, and the person who freaks out and makes bad decisions because of that, or they don't have a stable marriage, or whatever. You see it all the time. I like stability in their life. I like that you could put them under pressure. Like I am way more likely to invest in a company of a guy who or girl who I train jujitsu with or had over at my house to do workouts so I can see what they're made of when we're tired or go rucking, do some hard work or get them in a cold plunge and see how they deal with that adversity. That's a great filtration system, by the way, if you want to find people to invest in. Send them over. I'll put them through a little bit of hell and we'll see how they come out on the other side.
I love it. And I think that's like the soft skills because like Excel can do everything. But if you take someone out of Excel and put them in real life and put them in these stress test positions, you can really tell who they are. And I think it's really like I love that idea. And when we do diligence on sponsors, because we invest in real estate and we find people to invest in, so sometimes I'm like, do you play golf? I know golf can be connotated like it's not a sport, but mentally it's very much, it shows you who they are. It shows if they're consistent, it shows you if they're crazy enough to try again until they get one shot in 4 hours. And if they do and they're happy, maybe it's not the right guy. Maybe they have to be like, oh, 4 hours to get one good shot. But then they thought, okay, let's learn, and then they keep progressing. That's your guy. So I definitely love this correlation about sport and investing and life, really.
Well, I'll tell you, the idea actually it came up because I have a friend. Had him on my podcast not too long ago. He's over 100 million a year in sales in his company. He's a CEO and an owner. And when it's all done, he said, when I exit that company, I want to set up a fund to invest in companies, and I want you to partner with me. We'll put up our money in the beginning. And he says, but one condition, they have to go through your 31-day program. Because over those 31 days, we put them through a grinder and we get to find out what they're like. So he said, you coach them in those 31 days, have them go through it. And then if they pass all that with flying colors, they're the company we're investing in. So it was my friend's idea. And I hope in the next couple of years he exits and we're going to do that.
So what are you doing now? What's on your agenda? What do you see yourself doing? What's interesting to you?
Yeah. Father of four and a very active father and husband. So with my wife and kids a lot. I practice sports. My wife does too. So we're very active together. But we started another business and it wasn't a business at first. It was for free. And that led to some people saying this was life changing. Let's do it again. And I go, well, maybe next year. And then they said, no, we'll pay you. And I go, oh, it was just like fourth grade when I had those trading cards and someone offered to pay me for them. That wasn't my intention, but it worked that way. And so I started a men's program. I wrote a book called 31 Days to Become a Better Man. And it's every day there's a physical challenge and a mental challenge, and you go through it. Some guys have done it on their own, have sold a few thousand books, so they haven't all come through my program. So I've some have reached out and said, I did your book, it was great, it changed my life, not bad for 20 bucks. And then some have said, I did the book, it was great, but I want to sign up for your program. It's only 200 bucks because they already have the book. So they spend a total of $220 or so and do this 31-day program. I've had in the last year and a half, over 500 guys have done it. And they all tell me it changes their life. And what I tell them is if it doesn't change your life and you actually put in the work, I'll give you your money back, the $200 for the program. It's all virtual. We got guys all over the world, mostly entrepreneurs. We communicate on a WhatsApp every day. They do 3 to 5 minutes of reading, and then they have to put some action into it. It takes like 20 minutes a day total. And then we have a Zoom call once a week, early morning Eastern time. And those who can't make it, we record it and let them watch it later. And it is the best thing I've ever done. And I only wish I could have done this my whole life. The problem is I didn't have any gray hair back then. I didn't have much success built yet, so nobody would listen to me. But now apparently they like my story. They see my success. The majority of the people who've signed up are people I know directly because they have seen what I've done with my life. We don't advertise or anything, but every class gets filled up. Every month, 24 guys join. And that did so well that then my wife developed a women's program. She didn't want to, but everybody kept asking her for it. It's for those who are watching the video, hers is It's My Turn daily challenges, 31 daily challenges for women. So she's got the same program for women. And my wife's pretty tough, kind of abandoned by one parent as a child, got cancer as a child, went through all that, was a registered nurse, 4 kids, still has a six-pack in her 40s with 4 kids, training right now for a full marathon, fights jujitsu several days a week. She's really tough. And she's the queen of accountability. So she's really helped a lot of women do the same things I'm talking about, life-changing stuff. She's helped women do that. So that's it. That's what we get to do now. We don't have to work. We're having absolute blast. You know, Jocko Willink asked me, how come you don't do this for free? And I said, I'd love to. And when I've given free slots for my class, those people take it for granted. You know, amazing professional fighters, friends of mine who I thought, oh, they're going to crush it. They're going to do so well. And then later they told me, you know, I didn't put any effort into it. So at least I feel like if I get them to spend $200 and put something on the line, they'll at least try. And that's made the difference. So that's the only reason I don't do it for free. I don't need the money, but I need them to have some skin in the game and feel what it feels like to put your credit card in. And my website's 31dailychallenges.com. But they put that in, they sign up for the next class, and now they're into it and they change their life.
This is wonderful. I usually like to end the podcast by saying, what makes you feel inspired in the work you do? But I feel that you answered by doing something incredibly impactful and changing people's lives, and doing it at $200 is really a no-brainer. So I'm going to be the first one to sign up, read your book, and do it, because I think that your story is very inspirational to me, and definitely for people that are listening to this. I strongly encourage to take action, and I really want to thank you for being on the podcast. I definitely want to keep in touch, and this is a space that you're always welcome to come back and see what else you're doing in 10 years, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully with more guys. You know, we do some things in this. It's developed. One guy, EO member out of South Florida, took my second class and he said, hey, on the finance day, you helped me discover $50,000 that was slipping through my company. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not good at that side of business, but I'm good at streamlining operations and saving money and cutting costs. And I did that in my business. That's why I was able to acquire 14 companies, because I was able to cut costs on operations. So that guy said, you can't let this end. You saved me 50,000 recurring on that finance day, one day of analyzing expenses that are going out, subscriptions, software you're not using, all these points. So a couple hours of work, you save 50,000 a year. And I said, so what do you think we should do? He says, well, don't let it end. Develop an ongoing program, a maintenance program for guys that finish the class. So now we're at 86 guys, 87 guys. And it's the all-star team of all the 20-something classes that have finished. I select only a couple guys per class, and I invite them. And in there, we bring speakers, professionals in all kinds of things, doctors, psychiatrists, bring them all kinds of people. We do an annual retreat. We got 25 guys flying down to South Florida next month and just doing a bunch of awesome things for 4 days, building bonds with these guys. So many partnerships have happened already. So much investment has happened between them, loans to their businesses, some of the guys that loan money. I mean, just all kinds of beautiful things and amazing relationships. So yeah, my goal is 10 years from now, we're still doing this, but we're doing it on a massive level. We're only 18 months into it, and it's already grown into something pretty nice.
Incredible, incredible. Well, so I'm going to sign up. So count one more.
Awesome. All right, Ahmad, thanks for having me, man. Great to meet you and chat about these things. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share.
Of course, of course. You're always welcome.